This video is meant as a guide for assignment number 1. As I noted in the introductory video, the assignments in this course are pretty self-explanatory. The exception is the first one, which can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to spend a few minutes walking you through it, and especially kind of explaining what the source that you will be consulting is all about. Now I'm going to switch over to this assignment in a Google Doc just because it's a little bit easier to read for our purposes. So your assignment pertains to something called the 1619 Project. This was a major piece that was published about 5 years ago by the New York Times Magazine. It was published in 2019. And it marked, 2019 did, the 400-year commemoration of when the first enslaved Africans were brought to what is now the United States of America. The first enslaved Africans were brought to what is now the U.S. in 1619. So it was, 400 years since that very fateful moment in our history. And they took this opportunity to discuss the centrality of slavery to the entire story of American history. In fact, that was their goal with the 1619 Project. All the different people who contributed to that work wanted to take slavery and place it at the center of our American story. You might not be surprised to learn that in these times, that proved to be incredibly controversial. And there was this tremendous backlash. And your assignment is going to be about what the 1619 Project argued and why there was such a backlash to it. Now, how you will access the 1619 Project, I'll show you in just a minute. But here are the questions that you'll be addressing. Your assignment is to write a 2 to 3 page response that discusses the following. Number 1, what is the central argument that the 1619 Project makes about the role of slavery in the founding and development of the United States of America? Now, if you've been listening, I kind of already gave a lot of that away. Number 2, provide 2 specific examples provided by the 1619 Project on how slavery has affected the continued development of the United States. As I'll show you, examples may run from how slavery impacted the development of our country's economy to the formation of our country's criminal justice system and beyond. Now, your discussion of these examples have to demonstrate how the impact that slavery had is still evident today. So not to give too much away, but if you're talking about the impact that slavery had on the American economy, you have to talk about the impact on the American economy, not only back in, the 18th and 19th centuries, but how that impact is still kind of felt today. Because again, that's a lot of what the 1619 Project is doing, is saying, hey, this isn't past. We're still living with the ugly legacies of slavery. That's going to be probably the biggest part of your response, those 2 examples. I want you to discuss those in some detail. And then the third question is, what criticisms have Republican politicians made of the 1619 Project? And I'm not here to pick on Republicans, but there are many, many politicians who came out against the 1619 Project, and all of them just happened to be Republican. So that's what we're talking about here. I want you to highlight the criticisms made by at least two prominent political figures. You might have to do some light research for that one. But trust me, just like you Google that, you're going to get hundreds of responses, hundreds of, things that come up because there were a lot of people who had something to say and they weren't very subtle about why they just felt the 1619 Project was no good, bad news. Now, how do you actually access this thing we're talking about? Well, there are three different ways. The one that is probably the easiest and the most convenient is the podcast. If you go to Spotify, they had a 1619 Project podcast. It was the same people who published it in the New York Times Magazine. They made the podcast. It's 5 parts. Each part's like an hour long. And it goes through all the major points that the 1619 Project made in print. It's free. It's probably available on other platforms as well. I use Spotify, so I can guarantee that it is on Spotify still. And especially if you learn better from listening rather than reading, there's an extra benefit there. Another option is to watch a 5-part mini-series that was made about the 1619 Project. Now, this one does require a subscription to Hulu, which I know not everybody is going to have. So that one is a little bit more limited. But if you do have Hulu, again, it's by the same people, and it covers all the major points. And so maybe you learn best by watching. You might want to avail yourself of that opportunity if you have it. But if you want to just go the traditional route, you can also read the 1619 Project. And it is linked on Blackboard. You can see the PDF file there that is attached. And this is what it looks like when you open it. Now, this is really why I made the video, because this is exactly how it appeared in print. By the way, you can't go and just read the 1619 Project online because it's behind a paywall. And I don't want you paying for the New York Times just to get this. So you can use this free PDF. But it's a little bit awkward doing it this way because this is exactly how it appeared in print. So like the second page is an advertisement. The third page is an advertisement. Some of the pages like this are divided, as you can see. So it starts kind of clunky. But once you get past some of these, advertisements and these other kind of things at the beginning, and you get into the list of contributors and the table of contents, you're starting to get to the good stuff. So let me show you just a few other things in here that you could look at. Starting on page 14, there is an introductory essay by the project's editor, a woman named Nicole Hannah-Jones. And she's writing about how slavery has impacted kind of the understandings of American democracy. Let me scroll down here a little bit more. Starting on page 30, there is an essay about how slavery impacted the development of the American economy. And this is a short essay. It's just a few pages. As you can see, there it is. It's 3 or 4 pages. Um, if we go to page 44, sorry, this isn't cooperating with me very well, so I'm just going to have to scroll down. If you go to page 44, there is an essay about how slavery has impacted the development of the American healthcare system and is part of the reason why Black and white Americans today continue to experience mass inequalities in terms of access to affordable and quality healthcare. Going a little further, on page 60, it's the beginning of an essay about Black music, and not only the importance of Black music to kind of American popular culture, but also the nature in which it has often been exploited. And Black music is one of the things that we'll be talking about this semester as having its roots, its origins in the experience of enslaved persons. And then finally, my favorite essay is on page 80. Starts on page 80, where they talk about how the history of slavery has impacted the development of the American criminal justice system. These are not the only essays in here. There's a number of others as well. This is 100 pages. I'm not asking you to read all 100 pages. I wouldn't want you to read all 100 pages. But you can peruse it and find a couple of essays that you find particularly interesting, and you can read them and you can read about them in your response. So just because how tricky the print version can be to use, that's why I wanted to put this video together. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions about this, please do not hesitate to email me. I'm always willing to help. Students who, I think students sometimes don't want to be like annoying, don't want to, ask for too much help, but don't. No, I mean, I love it when someone is engaging in the material. I'm always willing to kind of take a few minutes out of my day to point them in the right direction. All right, everyone, have a, like I said, a good first week, and I'll talk to you soon.